Finally, the story about the man behind the FBI, the F being for fabulous.
Damn it.
The Fabulous Bureau of Investigation.
I knew it. I was like, I can't believe he's not leading with gay Edgar Hoover. But you had something else in the chamber.
Well, I'll tell you what, I, for one, am disappointed. I wanted to see a movie about J. Edgar Hoover, not gay Edgar Hoover. This movie should have been called Brokeback Edgar. I was disappointed.
What are you doing, right?
He's got his
That's the voice I talk about. Whenever I talk about J. Edgar Hoover, I use this voice.
Is that Kennedy?
It's a little Kennedy.
No,
yes.
that's Mayor Joe Quimby from the Simpsons.
I understand now what G-Man stands for gay man. I will not stand for this gay propaganda. I'm sorry.
Okay, and there was Walter Winchell and Harry S. Truman.
All mixed up into one amalgam of whatever the fuck that was.
I will keep going if you like.
And then there was co-host being fucked up. Now, really, I find the story behind J. Edgar Hoover fascinating. I mean, outside of the whole transvestite gay thing, this is a man who I have not read about very much. I will let you know I don't know much about him, which is why I found certain parts of this movie very fascinating. It's too bad that I found most of this movie boring.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, actually. I mean, I think I probably know just a little more about him than you do.
I would say a lot more. I keep giving me credit, but
He showed you, Corey.
The one thing about this guy is that like he's not very pronounced in history or remembered for being a nice guy or an innovator, and in some ways he really was. I mean, he brought fingerprinting and a lot of the modern forensic science into the FBI and created the modern FBI in the way that we have it. But he did that because he was intensely paranoid and basically just all insane in a lot of ways. I mean, not like batty insane, but like OCD insane.
Well, you know what? It's funny how there's a lot of things like that. Like you think about Dr. Charles Moulton, who created the lie detector, but then he was also way into S&M and bondage.
Right.
He created Wonder Woman just so he had a superhero that could be tied up and spanked.
He literally is every third page.
Well, the thing with this movie is I was expecting an actual crime movie. As far as just featuring J. Edgar, I really didn't know it was going to be a story spanning his life and how he created the FBI. I mean, I was hoping for a little bit of that, but it really took me by surprise when they brought up all this other stuff that I heard just it being rumors, but slowly but surely I was like, okay, wow, this really is turning into Brokeback Mountain with J. Edgar Hoover.
There's an enormous amount of controversy about that other stuff, about the transvestitism, which supposedly was actually a rumor started by the mob to smear him when he was trying to fight them during Prohibition, about him being gay, although there certainly seems to be a little more evidence towards that.
There's a bunch of evidence pointing that way.
Well, nonetheless, though, this movie takes some pretty big presumptions about that part of his life and makes the whole second half of the film pretty much be dominated by that story.
Is, yeah.
Now, that's fair enough because Clint Eastwood realized he was making this movie about this guy who's an unlikable dickhead pretty much at every point of his life and goes, man, I got to put something in here where audiences are going to identify with this guy or like him on some level, especially left-leaning audiences, which ironically for a Republican director like Clint are the people who tend to be his biggest fans. Or no one's going to like this movie. And that's kind of what that ended up feeling like. I'm like, what happened to the guy who's actually kind of fascinating with his contradictions and the guy who, like I said, did all this for the FBI and yet at the same time he was so paranoid and constantly thought that people were against him. I mean, that was a story that was interesting to me. And then it just kind of turned into this weird sort of love story.
Well, they make J. Edgar, I mean, watching this, I was like, wow, they're really making J. Edgar Hoover look like fucking Norman Bates in Psycho.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, especially when it delves into his relationship with his mom.
Yeah, well, this
played by Judi Dench.
This movie is about the man who's credited with founding the FBI. Now, a lot of people say no, the FBI existed before J. Edgar Hoover. No,
not really.
No. In 1935, when he came in and did what he did, when he came into head of the FBI, he created the FBI that we know today.
Well, they were kind of a joke before that. It was just kind of like this agency, like, oh, okay, you guys investigate. Here's your little magnifying glasses. Go look around.
They
whatever.
didn't have any power. They couldn't carry guns. They couldn't order their own investigation.
And they came in and they fumbled evidence. I mean, he's responsible for many of the innovations that we see in the FBI today. I mean, we already mentioned
standard issue dresses for men.
Yeah, there you go. No, putting fingerprints on file. Centralizing evidence to create forensics labs. And, a lot of people say, well, who cares about that? Yeah, I mean, we want to know if he's gay or not. How do you look at a dress? And it's like, okay, we've all heard those rumors and everything. But there are tons of myths that surround J. Edgar Hoover. I mean, a lot of them revolve around, okay, how much of a role did he play in many of the major investigations that he participated in, or how much of it did he just fabricate to make himself a celebrity because he was an insecure guy? Clint Eastwood in this movie approaches all that, some of it to great extent, and some of it to a fault.
Yeah, I think that like that was one of the parts that I actually really enjoyed was looking at the examination of how he was one of those early people who was trying to use media to get what he wanted, to get like the people on his side, and it worked. I mean, for instance, when early on, like The Criminal was the star of films like Jimmy Cagney and Scarface, you know, people were like, oh, well, this is, or not Jimmy Cagney, I'm sorry, I forget who the actor is.
James Cagney, yeah.
No, but it wasn't Scarface. He was in another. He was in The Public Enemy.
Oh, yeah,
The Public Enemy.
White Heat.
And the problem is the G-Man was the copper was the bad guy at that for a lot of those, and he turned all that around and made it where like every kid wanted to be a G-Man, get their little junior G-Man badge, and this was embarrassing as hell to the federal government at the time, and he had to surreptitiously go and put stuff in comic books, you know, about, oh, look at these great G-Men, the federal guys, and there's J. Edgar Hoover at the top of them all, because even though, you know, all this was very good for building the FBI, which was kind of his pet project, in the end, this movie really shows it was all just about him and his ego. His own personal ego.
Which, I mean, why wouldn't it be? I mean, you look at the guy, I would have been shocked if it wasn't about ego, because the whole movie is pretty much about him wanting to put exactly what he wants the rest of the world to see after he's gone, what this organization stood for, what he actually built. He protected it like it was his kid. You know, you even see he treated the shit like Captain Kirk treats the fucking Enterprise. I mean, he really he takes it that far, and I completely understand. I just wish that the movie wasn't so jumpy with the stories that it is as it went along. It would jump from the Limburger case to the Limburg case.
Nobody stole the cheese.
It jumped from the hamburger case to the gay case.
The hamburger case. He stole the
Limburg with the Limburg baby. It would jump onto his relationship with his right hand man, who was the
Army Hammer.
Army Hammer, yeah. Which the character he's playing here is
Clyde. I can't remember his last name.
But
his name is Clyde Tolson. He was associate director of the FBI. Mm-hmm. And, you know, man, okay, so you're right. I agree with you completely. There are things that I find fascinating in this movie. I mean, because outside of, you know, the myths and the rumors about his sexuality, about his fame, about his involvement in cases, I mean, we get to see J. Edgar Hoover as a kid. I mean, not as a kid, but as an up-and-coming employee, you know, a low man on the totem pole. But we get to see his ambition, the things in life that happen to him that are tragic, that make him want to be who he is. And as we lead up to that, I'm like, wow, now this is a really great story about a man that I didn't know that much about, and I'm learning about him now. And then when they get to the Charles Lindbergh baby, and you know, everybody knows the case where the baby was kidnapped and went missing, and
the cheese,
and of course we can't forget about that damn cheese, boy. You know?
Cheese is tasty.
Where to go? He's gonna catch that mouse. J. Edgar Hoover hates Mises to pieces, but
I'll make mincemeat out of that mouse.
Like, you guys never fucked up a word around here, huh?
Come on. But not as fun as you did. I mean, we're not making fun.
I bring art to it.
It's good times. You know? But no, when they got to, especially when they got to that case in the movie, it seemed to take a different tone. They start to take away from the story of J. Edgar Hoover himself, and it became like a detective movie. And I was like, I wouldn't even mind that, but this can be covered kind of quickly. We don't need to spend as much time in this section. I really want to get back to this man, his confusion, and his innovations.
There's a lot about this film that's kind of disconcerting in that fact, though, not just the way it jumps around, like where it just feels like every story is truncated, like they weren't finishing telling one story in one aspect of his life, but then they move on to the next thing, and it's because, well, Clint Eastwood already got across to you the important thing to take away from that story as it relates to J. Edgar, but then we're like, well, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, because it plays out episodically in a way, and it's like you're missing, like, it feels like, okay, you're jumping on to something else, but did I miss the last 2 episodes?
And not just that, but the whole thing is told non-linear as well, because it's going back and forth from an older J. Edgar with some of the best old age makeup I've ever seen, with Leonardo DiCaprio as like towards his twilight years, relating his story to a series of people who are writing it up for him. And
I was like, okay, is he telling people is over time, or is this like when one person didn't get it, he just fires him?
Yeah, that seemed like that's what was going on. He kept firing them.
They asked the wrong question.
But it keeps going back and forth between that, and I wasn't even clear if like there was other stuff stuff going on with older him that flashing towards, if that was like supposed to be happening at the same time as that, or if that was him relating stories. I mean, it's kind of confusing.
No, it needed better editing. They needed that, and that's the problem with the movie. I mean, it's so all over the place. Even though it's fascinating, but they should have gotten an editor so it could make sense to the audience that they're going to show it to, which is us. You know, because it's like, you know, I'm not that much. I find J. Edgar fascinating. And I had no clue, honestly, about his homosexuality, if there is any at all, because I thought it was just speculative. But, I mean, watching this, I was like, okay, just stick to one subject just for a little while, because you're making me, like, I'm trying to piece this all together in my head. And this movie's too goddamn long for me to do that.
And when you're going to tell a tragic story, like about a tragic hero, somebody whose life is ultimately tragic when looked at through, like, you know, through the perspective of your whole life, you've got to start off with someone who's entirely sympathetic on some level early on, so we can get to that point and then actually honestly feel bad to him. But J. Edgar, at least in this film, I never felt that for him. And so by the time we get there, I'm like, I just don't give a shit that you are suffering.
You know, Leon, before we started this recording here, you and I had two different opinions on this movie. So I'm eager to hear what you have to say.
There was nobody who's going to let me talk.
I'm passing on. Notice I was like, I gave you that finger, like, him. The anointed one is next.
Put on the spotlight on the stage.
Well, I hear everything y'all are saying, and I probably felt that all those things for the first 15 or 20 minutes. And then it all quickly gelled for me. I mean, as far as the gay stuff, from all the things I'd heard about J. Edgar Hoover, this was toned way down. I thought it was going to be in my face the whole time. And at first, the way it jumped around, I was kind of like, man, I don't know. But then the longer it went on, the more I was like, you know what? I kind of like this. I never felt this unsatisfied or even confused. I like seeing, okay, his aspect of where he was, you know, at the present time, he's telling the story, and then going back to the past, and it would kind of relate in its own way. There's so many different things that it came across where I was like, oh, here's the part where he's going to go overboard. It's like, no, not really. He found a way to take these things. Because it's like, if you didn't include the gay stuff, there'd be plenty of people who'd be like, oh, yeah, he was too afraid to show how he was gay. You didn't want to put that in, did you? And it's like, you know what? It's in there, but it doesn't, at least to me, it didn't take over. I was fascinated with the Lindbergh case because nobody had really ever dramatized that to that degree anymore. And I didn't realize what his involvement was. And I love the way he's telling this story throughout the whole thing. And there's that element of like, yeah, dude, but even what you're telling us, you're kind of that's in your head. It's not quite how you say it. I thought the way it came together at the end, really, even the parts I thought were frayed, even came together for me. And the thing was, I went in this movie tired, and I was like, damn it, okay. Like the friend I took with me, I'm like, dude, if I snore, you got to elbow me. I was enraptured the whole time. I was never bored. It never slowed down to me to the point where I was even my mind was wandering.
I wish I could share your experience because there are a lot of things to like about this film, no question. I think it's got some gorgeous cinematography. I think the like I said, the old age makeup was flawless. I thought it was beautiful, especially with Leonardo DiCaprio. I thought the performances were out of the world, out of this world. I mean, once again, Leonardo DiCaprio giving a fantastic performance. Oh, shocker!
Hey, that Army Hammer kid's good too.
The Army Hammer kid's really good. Everybody in it, I thought was great. I thought it was a little sad that Judi Dench was there just to sort of come back around to give a point on the transvesticism thing later. It was like, really, is that the only reason you staccato pop in and out here and there, is so that we can have this little thing, so we can reference it towards the end?
Yeah, but she's there to like for one of the big moments of the film, one thing I like is like, okay, you talk about him not being a likable character because from everything that's ever been written about him, there's nothing likable about him.
Yeah.
But I thought Clint Eastwood found a way to make him sympathetic and yet no less batshit crazy or a complete asshole at the same time.
See, I just didn't find him that sympathetic. I mean, interesting, sure, I'll give you that, but I felt like the movie wanted ultimately for you to feel pathos, and I just didn't get that.
That's funny because I did. That's one of the things that the movie did very well. As far as J. Edgar Hoover in this film, and we have to take this as a movie because I have problems with the way they portrayed his story. As a character, I felt like, wow, this guy has a lot going on in his life, a lot of confusion, a lot of turmoil that are making him the hard person that he is. I mean, you could call him a lot of things. He was a paranoid. He was probably a little crazy. He's a racist and all that. But out of everything that's said about him, I was like, I feel sorry for this guy because he cannot be who he is. one of the things that I had a big problem with as far as telling this man's story is that it is all speculation. I mean, nobody can say for sure whether he was gay. Nobody can say for sure if this case went down like this. There's some where they can say definitely he didn't do this or he did do this. But some things are like, we just don't know. The guy had a habit of keeping files on other people that we'll never know. And I think the story could have been told in a way where it was told from different people, told from different points of view. And then the audience was left to like figure out if this was real, because as far as the real J. Edgar Hoover goes, from what I understand, people will never know what the real story is about this guy.
Well, I think it still comes across because even at the end when I was watching this case, I was like thinking, okay, I need to go and do some research on Wikipedia because I don't know what's true and what's not true. I mean, the only thing I do know that at least that I've ever heard about him is that he pretty much took credit, or he tried to like take credit for the Dillinger case. So where Melvin Purvis was the one who took down Dillinger.
Yeah.
And apparently he was like the shining, boy for the FBI, and Hoover was extremely jealous of him and managed to find a way to kick him the fuck out.
I want you to start a file on Senator McKellar immediately. I want 4 agents on him at all times. I want to know what's in his trash, and I want you to photograph him at every dinner. Don't get in the car. You can walk back.
Edgar, we have lunch. We don't miss lunch no matter what, remember?
You pulled away from me in there.
You perjured yourself, Edgar, and the lie was an easily provable one. If you'd continued to pursue it, there's no telling how much worse it could have been.
Find Agent Purvis. He is to be demoted immediately, or better yet, fired.
Firing the man who killed John Dillinger would be a PR disaster.
Then he is to spend the rest of his career behind a desk, and if he'd like to keep that job, he'd best stay out of the papers. Go.
I honestly wish they went a little more into that, because that I found interesting. Just his whole I want to be the star of this.
It almost felt like the movie's was showing footnotes when it talked about the really bad stuff like that he was doing. Like, and by the way, he did this too.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was one of those things like the movie Taking Woodstock, where there's people who complain like, oh, I go to see this movie about Woodstock, they don't even show the Jimi Hendrix part of the concert. It's like, that wasn't the point of the movie. And with this, if I had any complaint, it just felt like probably the big things, like the Kennedy assassination, the Martin Luther King assassination, Dillinger. Those are things where it didn't focus on that, and those things are so big. At the same time, it's almost like, you know what? If you want to see that, there's 100 other movies that do it. But the Lindbergh kidnapping, there might be 1 or 2.
Yeah, there should have been more on that is part of the problem, though. It's like, wow, they get into it, and then they just go away. And then later, when you get into it again, it does the same thing. Well, only ultimately to even find out that, like, in some ways, the movie was just fucking with you.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, I can't, and even though we all disagree, it's like, everybody wants something different from this movie. So you can't really say somebody's right or wrong. This is a movie I can't even really recommend to people because they might like it more than I do. They might like it less than I do. I wanted to see more of him seeking fame. I mean, this is a man who actually went in and was a consultant for Hollywood, for a long time. I want to see more of that fame seeker out there. During those parts, I mean, there's a ton of evidence to say that this man was probably gay. I mean, going off.
I mean, what they tell you that was in fact, not speculation, but at the very end, they tell you some things that are in fact that make you go like, yeah, it sounds like it was.
This is a man that this is a man that went on, had dinner with a guy constantly. Spent a lot of time at home with him, went on vacations with this man, and they never took any women. And now in my mind, I'm thinking like, that's booty buddyism right there. But hey, but that's, I don't, if it's speculative, I want to stay that way. I did not need to see in this movie where Armie Hammer's looking at Leonardo DiCaprio. I was like, don't you ever see that girl again? If you do, you ain't gonna never see me again. I was like, well, nobody know if that happened.
I don't mind a little bit of conjecture. I just felt like as far as a film, that story took over when that other things were actually more interesting.
Yeah.
I was like, let's see an actual, you said, I mean, you can't get any more of this is a biofilm than naming it just the name of the guy it's about. And I was like, okay, well, we've kind of gotten pretty far away from a biofilm at that point and gotten entirely into just conjecture about somebody that's just not as interesting to me because you don't know if any of that stuff actually happened or not.
Can I ask you something? Okay, I agree with you. Leonardo DiCaprio, amazing in this movie. Oscar-winning performance right there. And the makeup on him, bought it completely. I thought that was cool. Now, all that money that they spent on Leonardo DiCaprio's makeup, you think that they just didn't have enough to do Armie Hammer's?
I was about to say, I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking the same exact. I was waiting for somebody to shut up so I can bring that up. But you're absolutely right, because out of all the makeup, everyone looks fantastic except for that fucking guy. That guy, I was honestly waiting for him to turn around so I can see the silver shamrock little emblem in the back to let me know that that's a fucking Halloween costume. I mean, because it looked like a Halloween mask. I mean, it looked bad.
Like an old man mask that you bought at the grocery store for Halloween.
It looked like fucking the grandpa from fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
It looked like somebody threw on just a fucking Halloween, a Don Post Halloween mask.
I was thinking of the Six Flags guy.
Oh, that too.
We're talking about old Clyde Tolson. You mean Armie Hammer plays him, and he's got to be old with Leonardo DiCaprio when he gets old too. And that shit just looked like they just poured a bunch of latex on his head and let it dry.
It was like, that motherfucker is not going to look as good as I am in this film. You fuck that new kid right in the ass. I didn't even want that little shit on this fucking movie.
And I have to say that the fact that they made him look like the Six Flags guy, it almost took me out of the movie. I mean, it really was like, oh, dude, really? I mean, these scenes aren't working now because I'm too busy looking at the fucking mask that they just threw on this guy. And I can't believe these scenes.
I think they went down the street and bought a mask. They just said, hey, man, was that the makeup guy quit?
Yeah.
No, it did throw me too, because I was like, Jesus Christ, you guys. I think you aged him too much, and you just threw a cheap mask on him.
They just run out of money after they did like Leo's makeup, though, because like I said, his is flawless.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Like the best I've ever seen. And then, Armie Hammer is like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
like,
and plus,
the way he threw me for a while. I mean, I got back into it eventually, but
I thought, for a while, I thought near the end, I was like, all right, I don't know if I'm just used to it or if he got better playing his role behind his mask. But even Armie Hammer playing old Clyde Tolson, I mean, I was like, his inflection is well, but that whole.
Well, the thing is,
I got the pause. It's like I'm not buying it.
Him playing old man bobblehead wasn't working.
He's like old George Clooney.
But for all we know, he looked at footage of him. I mean, I'm sure some exists.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I did not see it, and even if he did look at that, it's just that performance. That was probably the weakest out of all of them. That's funny because I like young Clyde Tolson in this movie. He's
great.
Armie Hammer, man, that he's an up and coming talent.
He really is.
We're going to see that guy in leading roles pretty sure. I'm soon. He's got looks. He's got the talent to carry it. That guy's got presence.
Yeah. Man, why don't you just put him already?
No, because
I will not if he wears old makeup.
Yeah, I know. Next time, just cast Grandpa Simpson. All right, let him play the young guy.
Because Ryan Gosling will be pissed.
No, I can't because Ryan Gosling would be next. Now, and speaking of actors, I think the movie's full of great performances, but there's some people who, like Naomi Watts, I felt like, she's great. She's always great. But her role in this movie was probably should have been done by somebody of a lesser name. I mean,
there was no reason to have a big name in that role. Even though I thought she had really good old age makeup in here,
she
too.
did. Mm-hmm. She did.
And I thought she pulled off the elderly version convincingly.
Yeah, basically, I mean, this is a Clint Eastwood movie. We haven't mentioned this already. We have. But Clint Eastwood's, he's done some, I mean, I love Clint Eastwood. Love him as an actor. Love him as a director. I'm going to have sex with him after Ryan Gosling and Armie Hammer. But,
he'll be quite dead by then.
Well, no, if I start next week, he'll be all right. And his old makeup is authentic. It's real,
You see the old broads Corey's brought home?
I'd like to see the Grim Reaper try and come for Clint Eastwood.
I know. Get back. But it's his latest period pieces, with the exception of Letters from Iwo Jima. His latest ones, they seem to be at a very slow, too much of a thoughtful pace for me, and I find lulls in them that just bore me. And this is no exception right here. I think that this is a movie that had a fascinating subject that needed more energy in its direction, more energy in its narration, and I wish I could give this movie more. This is one of the movies I was looking forward to. This is the movie I said, Oscar season. This is it right here. Clint Eastwood movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. I feel bad saying that I got to give it a rental. It's a good rental, but it's a rental.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll go quite so far as to say a straight rental, but, Jedgar, as I've been calling it, has a lot of good stuff in it. It has a lot of sequences that are really solid. Like I said, we've gone over all this. It's got terrific performances. At least most of the makeup is good. And J. Edgar was, he's an interesting guy. I couldn't get any sense of emotional connect to this film at all, which wouldn't have bothered me so much if it didn't so desperately want me to have that. And I couldn't. I was almost kind of insulted by the fact that it was trying so hard, because it was like, come on, Clint, I know you know how to make a film that can do this. I mean, you made one of the best movies ever made, Unforgiven, amongst other great films. That has a deep, deep emotional impact. Here, I felt absolutely nothing. I am going to give it a high rental, still a rental, but kind of more into like, oh, you definitely should rent it when it comes out type of thing.
When I said good rental, I meant high rental.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Your terminology is not clear to me. Watch co-hosts get all upset here in a second.
God damn it, you guys! It's a rental. A rental's a rental.
What the hell's wrong with you? This movie suffered from bad editing. Clint Eastwood should have gotten his orangutan Clyde to do the editing, for Christ's sakes. No, I will say... Sorry,
that's a bad British accent.
I'm sorry. I don't know where that was going. That's why I stopped. I pulled the brakes.
I think the whole accent joke thing now has fallen to you.
Yes, I will do that. You know what the thing is? There's a lot of fascinating points in this movie. I enjoyed the hell out of the performances. We can go on all day about that. But yeah, the movie just suffers from it being too long and not really like focusing on one thing. If they would have done something as far as like focus on the more interesting aspects. Yeah, the whole gay relationship is fine, but it's like they went overboard with it a little too much, where it just distracted you too much from what this guy was about. It turned the story into something else that I wasn't really prepared for. Even though it was a little fascinating, I thought there was too much of it in here. But other than that, I would give the performances, the performances across the board are full price. The movie itself is just a matinee. It suffers from being too goddamn long and not having a real point, a linear point.
Okay. And while I don't think the movie is perfect, I didn't have any of the problems you guys have. I mean, I felt almost the complete opposite as on the negative stuff. I don't know. I mean, so much of what I hear you guys saying is like you thought it should have done this and should have done that. And I was happy with it, with what it did. I was like, hey, you tell the story the way you want to tell it, and I'm going to enjoy it. And I did. I liked the structure of it. I liked that it jumped around and gave me so many different things and made me want to, look up some more about it. It never got bored in the whole thing. Like I said, for me, it was a low full price. I actually would like to see it again. I hope it's one of the screenings they send us.
I think that I would like to hear co-host talk more in that voice.
I'd rather not.
I'd rather you would not too. I will tell you this much. Looking at Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm telling you, I think we are that much closer to getting that Colonel Sanders movie that we want. Tell me if you don't look at people. I want you to do this. I want you to pull a picture up of Leonardo DiCaprio as old J. Edgar Hoover. Put some glasses on him, put a white mustache and that white goatee, put one of them skinny black ties on him, and tell me that don't look like the master of 7 herbs and spices right there.
11 herbs and spices, get it right.
You are not helping your people with the fried chicken thing.
I happen to like fried chicken.
Let me make that joke.
No, that's a story that my people need.
Wait. Who do you consider as Corey's people? I hope you don't mean black people.
To be fair, anyone who doesn't like fried chicken, the fuck is wrong?
I mean,
with
the world. Everybody loves fried chicken.
I think he's talking about crazy people, Leon.
Except co-host. He cannot have any talking like that.